As we get going here, I want to wish us all a happy Father's Day and a happy Juneteenth as our nation finally formally acknowledges that day of freedom. Thank you for being here to worship together with University Mennonite Church. We are excited to be looking forward to an outdoor day of worship next Sunday, but we are here one more time on Zoom, sharing this space together. We have a wonderful service prepared again this morning, and we're glad that you can be here with us. We want to thank you to Marvin Hall for being our video sharing person this morning. Marvin, whenever you're ready, please go ahead and share this morning's prelude video. Hey Marvin, can you start that again? We can't see the video, we're seeing your desktop instead. Rookie mistake.
3, 2, 1. Sometimes I just can't take it. Sometimes I just can't take it, and it isn't alright. I'm not gonna make it, and I think my shoes are untied. I'm like a broken record. I'm like a broken record, and I'm not playing right. Just cynical about it, kill me till you tell me on the heavenly phone to hold tight. Come on, come on. Oh, 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 come on, come on. Don't let go. Oh, hold tight, hold tight. Oh, it's alright, you said. I got my hands up shaking just to let you know that you've got a higher power. Got me singing every second, dancing every hour. Oh yeah, you've got a higher power, and you're really someone I wanna know. This boy is electric. This boy is electric, and you're sparkling like the universe connected. And I'm buzzing night after night after night. This joy is electric. This joy is electric, and you're circuiting through. I'm so happy that I'm alive. Happy I'm alive at the same time as you. 'Cause you've got a higher power. Got me singing every second, dancing every hour. Oh yeah, you've got a higher power, and you're really someone I wanna know. You've got a high. You've got a high. Yeah, you've got a high. You've got, oh, you've got a high. You've got, oh, you've got a high. Yeah, you've got, oh, you've got a high. Hands up shaking just to let you know now. You've got a higher power. Got me singing every second, dancing every hour. Oh yeah, you've got a higher power. You once in any lifetime. I'm going a million miles an hour. When for so long I've been down on my knees in your love song. Sing me over and over for so long. I've been down on my knees to your love song. Floats me on, yeah.
Well, during today's service, we'll be reflecting on God's abundance in creation. As I thought about how to begin today's service, I thought about our backyard garden just behind me here. A little corner of the planet that we've tried really hard to grow some food for our family. Despite a decent wire fence, and we still somehow lose many early plants to rabbits, birds, and chipmunks. I feel like we have to pour in a little extra effort to get most things to flourish. From covering the seeds after planting to avoid frost, or weeding and thinning to make sure that the plants have space to grow after they come up, watering when we go through dry stages of the springtime, and adding compost and leaves to the soil at the end of the growing season. Despite all of our best efforts, we still struggle with certain vegetables. We almost never get good bell peppers. Our zucchini plants almost always fall victim to an insect or fungus. And although Jonas continues to insist on planting watermelon seeds each spring, we have never had a fully formed watermelon grow from the soil in our garden. But there are a few plants in our backyard garden that often do quite well. We've had good luck with tomatoes and potatoes. The rhubarb we planted shortly after moving in continues to thrive in its corner of our garden. And then, of course, there are our hop plants. These are what we refer to as hops, the flower of a vigorous climbing perennial vine with the slightly silly name of Humulus lupulus. Hops are primarily used in the production of beer, but they've also been used throughout history as a culinary ingredient and an ingredient in a variety of herbal remedies. Everything from aiding in digestion to helping calm nerves and contributing to more restful sleep. If you've ever tried to grow them, you know that similar to the bamboo plant, it's actually harder to stop them from growing than to get them to start. They, more than anything else in our backyard, seem driven by a sense of abundance. My hops were a gifted transplant from our neighbor. They're always the first thing up in the spring, and though they tower above me on their 10-foot trellis, I'm sure they'd be taller if I just built them a bigger climbing structure. Speaking of my neighbor, he was ready to be done growing hops a few years ago, so he dug them out. Here's that site. As you can see, they're still actively present and still trying to climb up the corner of his porch as if they were never disturbed. As we move through our service this morning, consider with me what it might mean for us to flourish in God's abundance. Consider the ways we move through creation and relate with it and react to it, and how we might participate in healthy growth together. May God's abundant peace go with us as we worship together this morning.
Psalm 104, verses 1 through 6 and 25. From Ancient Songs Sung Anew, translation by Lynn Bauman. Rise up, my soul, and speak this blessing to your God. O Lord, my God, your infinite reality exceeds my every word. But I shall say that you are clothed in beauty. You wear majesty like a robe. And I shall say you wrap yourself in light as in a cloak, and take that light and spread it out, unrolling heaven in all its splendor. And I shall say the chariot of your spirit you ride high as wind upon the clouds, and send your messengers on wings, your servants forth as flames of fire. This stable earth you make secure upon foundations deep, and wrap it up in watery cloth piled on like mountains high. O Lord, my God, behind your work, your wisdom is the architect of all. The plenitude of life is yours.
Friends, we light our peace lamp each week, prayerfully longing for God's peace in our world. As a prayer that we lean into God's abundance, I wanted to draw us to another poem. I pause with some hesitation as I just messed up a poem titled Wild Geese, but this one I think I've got right. This is not Mary Oliver's Wild Geese poem, but one by Wendell Berry. And I think I've got the words correct for us here this morning. Wild Geese by Wendell Berry. Horseback on Sunday morning, harvest over, we taste persimmon and wild grape, sharp, sweet of summer's end. In time's maze over fall fields, we name names that rest on graves. We open a persimmon seed to find the tree that stands in promise, pale in the seed's marrow. Geese appear high over us, pass and the sky closes. Abandon, as in love or sleep, holds them as their way. Clear in the ancient faith, what we need is here. And we pray, not for new earth or heaven, but to be quiet in heart and in eye, clear. What we need is here. Friends, may it be so. Amen. Friends, would you join me in a prayer for this morning's offering? Creator God, we thank you so much for all of your many blessings in our lives. We ask that you take our gifts and use them to build your kingdom here on earth. In your name we pray. Amen.
Oh, hey, there you are. How you doing? I don't know if you remember, but a while back I left on a journey from here. It was a lot colder then. There was snow on the ground. I had my coat on. I had my winter boots on. Things are different now. They're a lot greener around here. time has passed. I don't know if you remember, but when I left, I wasn't exactly sure where I was going. It was a little scary, but I was trusting that wherever I went, God would be with me. So I left on my journey, and at first I wasn't really sure if God was with me. I didn't see him along the way. I saw some other people, and I didn't hear him. I didn't hear him telling me which way to go when there was a turn in the road. And so I kind of started to wonder, was God really with me on my journey? Then I started to notice things. I started to realize that God was present, but in a different way than I thought he would be. I started to realize that God, who created the world and everything in it, was present everywhere I looked. I saw God in the mountains, in the clouds over top of the mountains. I saw God present in cows grazing in the pastures, and a donkey eating grass in a field. I realized that God was even present in the pathway that guided my steps each day. That God made the rocks and the soil that I walked on. I saw God in a snail that shared my path, and a lizard that rested on the rocks along the way. I saw God in the flowers along my pathway every day. Beautiful reds, bright yellows, white, purple, and in the cottonwood fluff that covered the ground one day. I experienced God's presence in a very old tree, warped and twisted from many years of growth. I knew God was present in the ocean, in the powerful waves that crashed on the rocks, in the foam that covered the moss. I saw God each evening as the sun set, when the golds and the oranges filled the sky. And I knew God was present, even in the moonlight. So anyway, God was present with me on my journey. All I had to do was open my eyes and look around. He was everywhere. So that was a good journey. It was long, but I'm glad to be home. I'm a little older, a little more tired, hopefully a little wiser. I don't know where I'm going to go next. Where would you like to go? There's lots of places out there. But just remember, wherever it is you go, God will be with you. All you have to do is open your eyes and look around, and you'll see God in all of creation every day. So I'm glad to be home. You take care now, and we'll see you soon.
Joel 2, verses 21 and 22. Do not fear, O soil. Be glad and rejoice, for the Lord has done great things. Do not fear, you animals of the field, for the pastures of the wilderness are green. The tree bears its fruit. The fig tree and vine give their full yield.
Good morning, friends. Let's begin with a full breath, receiving the Spirit of Christ. Pray with me. May the words of my mouth and the meditations of my heart be pleasing to you, O God, our rock and our Redeemer. Amen. In September 1895, along the Canadian River, smack in the middle of Indian Territory, in what is now known as Kansas, two boys searched the creek for a deep pool in which to cast their fishing lines, hoping to bring home something to fill their empty bellies. One stubs his toe on something hard hidden in the long grass. "Pig-a-neck!" he yells. Before long, they've taken off their worn pants and tied up the legs with twine, turning them into sacks in which to carry home the ripening pecans. You see, the word pecan comes to English from the indigenous languages. Piggin is a nut, any nut. Well, one of those boys was the grandfather of Robin Wall Kimmerer, whose ancestors were displaced from the lands around Lake Michigan and Wisconsin to Kansas and eventually to Oklahoma. As they migrated, they carried pecans and their relatives butternuts, black walnuts, and hickories, planting them intentionally and unintentionally along the way. Food sources were created for human and non-human alike, and the trees benefited as their range expanded. The ancestors of these trees remain today, markers of settlements of those long ago travelers. One being cared for by the other, humans helping trees, trees sharing their calorie-packed nuts with those hungry travelers. In the lecture hall where Kimmerer, professor at the SUNY College of Environmental Science and Forestry in Syracuse, New York, teaches, she often begins her general ecology class with a survey, asking her students to rate their understanding of the negative interactions between humans and the environment. Nearly every one of the 200 students said confidently that humans and nature are a bad mix. Later in the survey, they're asked to rate their knowledge of positive interactions between people and the land. Positive interactions. The median response was none. None. How is that possible, she wonders. In the first chapter of her book, Braiding Sweetgrass, Kimmerer asks, how can we begin to move toward ecological and cultural sustainability if we cannot even imagine what the path feels like? Let me say that question again. How can we begin to move toward ecological and cultural sustainability if we cannot even imagine what the path feels like? Well, the rest of her book is one story after another of humans' fraught, beautiful, and complex relationship with this place we call home, the earth. And so, sprinkled throughout this summer, we will return to the stories of her book several times, mining it for wisdom as we live into our belief in a God who is a God of abundance, a God who loves and is in relationship with all of creation. I want to be clear, Kimmerer does not claim a Christian lens. Her writings and life come out of a deep connection with the spirituality of her ancestors, beautiful and meaningful just as they are. Still, I believe she has much to offer us, those who find meaning and hope in the teachings and writings of Hebrew and Christian scriptures. And so I will weave our sacred texts with her writings. This morning we heard these words from the prophet Joel. Do not fear, O soil, be glad and rejoice, for the Lord has done great things. Do not fear, you animals of the field, for the pastures of the wilderness are green. The tree bears its fruit, the fig tree and vine give their full yield. The book of Joel begins in lament, where plagues of locusts who devastated the land represent the domination of warring adversaries. And then here in chapter 2, it turns to a foretelling of what God will do for those who return to God in trust. God promises that the suffering of the land and the people will be brought into right relationship. The ground will be restored, the wild animals fed, and joy will return to the people of Judah. Drought will be a thing of the past. Fruit trees will bear, threshing floors and wine vats will be full. All will flourish. The people of God and the earth together will be restored. One cannot happen without the other. One cannot happen without the other. Flourishing is mutual. The prophet Joel hears God speaking to his present-day situation of Judah. For Joel, it is a work in progress, happening in his time, and he recognizes that the restoration, the work will continue on long past him, stretching into the future. And so I believe Joel's words have something to teach us here, now. Do not fear, O soil. Do not fear, you animals of the field. Here God speaks directly to the soil, directly to the animals, reminding them that flourishing is part of the past and it will come again. My friends, ours is a God who loves and is in relationship with all of creation, human and non-human. We so easily forget. We lose touch with how bound up we are with this fragile, resilient source of abundance under our feet. Those sacks of pigon nuts the boys brought back home in that dusty end of summer in 1895 were considered poor man's meat, containing as much protein as a string of catfish. Unknowingly, the gathering of as many nuts as those young boys could carry was wise, for nut trees don't make a crop every year. Some years a feast, but most a famine. This unpredictable cycle of nut production is known as masting. Nut trees protect their fruit with stony shells, not meaning for you to eat them right away like berries or fleshy fruits, but to keep them for later when you need the calories most. Nuts are designed to be stored, to be brought inside an Oklahoma cabin, or saved for later in a chipmunk's cache, where some will surely be forgotten, later growing into the next generation of trees. For masting trees to succeed, each tree has to make lots and lots of nuts, so as to overwhelm those who feast on their bounty. If each individual tree plodded along, making a few nuts every year, they'd all get eaten and there would be no next generation of pecans. But given the high cost of production, these trees can't afford that kind of output every year. They save, as you or I might save for a big purchase. Mast fruiting trees spend years making sugar, and then rather than spending it little by little, they store it. They store it in their root banks. And when the account has a surplus, only then are their nuts enough to feed squirrels and humans alike. Well, this boom and bust cycle of nut production continues to be a hot topic for scientists. For it's more complex than a simple energetic equation of making fruit only when you can afford it. You see, trees grow and store energy at different rates depending on their habitats. Some get rich quick, growing in fertile farmland, while other shaded neighbors struggle, rarely having enough. If their masting cycles was purely based on a tree's energy storage, they would fruit on their own schedule. But they don't do that. If one tree fruits, they all fruit. There are no soloists, says Kimmerer. Not one tree in a grove, but the whole grove. Not one grove in a forest, but every grove. All across the county and all across the state. The trees act not as individuals, but somehow as a collective. What happens to one happens to all. We can starve together or feast together, Kimmerer writes. All flourishing is mutual. She reminds the reader that we make a grave error if we try to separate individual well-being from the health of the whole. The gift of abundance we receive from pecans is also a gift to the trees themselves. All flourishing is mutual. The good news, my friends, the good news is that our God is a God of abundance. Ours is a God who loves and is in relationship with all of creation. Yes, all flourishing is mutual. Like the pecans, we too are not soloists. What impacts one impacts us all. Yesterday, June 19th, was Juneteenth. Juneteenth, which commemorates the day in 1865 when United States troops arrived in Galveston to seize control of the former Confederate state of Texas. This arrival came 2.5 years after the signing of the Emancipation Proclamation, and 2 months following the Confederate surrender in Virginia, which marked the end of the American Civil War. It took the intervention of federal authorities to ensure that everyone who was enslaved would be freed. Freedom didn't just happen, even after warfare ceased. It took intervention. It took working together for the good of all. My friends, if we really believe that what impacts one impacts all, that all flourishing is mutual, then we are called to join God and God's people in the work of creative flourishing. My friends, we are people of God's peace. We are created to share God's love and to receive this love from others. God shows us what it means to be in relationship with this wonderful world, this wondrous world. My friends, may we continue to join God in the ongoing relationship with all of creation. May we join God in the ongoing relationship of mutual flourishing for all. May it be so. Amen.
We are people of God's peace, sons of creation. Now unites and strengthens us, softness and
Well, a couple of announcements this morning. We'll have breakout rooms as usual. This morning is our last Sunday school time, our last Sunday school gathering before we take a summer break. We will again be talking about church around the table and want to get some feedback, want to hear your questions. And we really welcome as much feedback and questions as we can so that elders and leadership team can make a decision on how we move forward. Next week, we will be meeting outside for worship. We are going to meet in the park behind the church, and we're going to start at 10 o'clock. So for summer worship, whether it's on Zoom or in person, it will start at 10. So looking forward to seeing all of you there. I will be sending out later today some details about the service of expectations and what you can expect. But I'm really looking forward, hoping that the weather will be on our side. Ben, do you want to say something about the need for recording here?
Yeah, we had hoped to offer a Zoom feed of this first outdoor service, but I am unavailable to be present at that outdoor service this coming Sunday. So I need your help. Either I need someone with a really robust data plan on their cell phone to be willing to be the one Zooming the feed back to those who cannot be attending, or your blessing to just say, this is an outdoor service. We will be letting go of the Zoom feed for a week here in the meantime. So I'll ask for your feedback via email or text message if you either want to be the person to help us out by Zooming or giving us the freedom to detach from Zoom for a week.
Thanks, Ben. And we really welcome your feedback on this service. We are going to return to Zoom on July 4th and then make some decisions about how we move forward with worship. So please give worship committee, give leadership team your feedback on gathering as we find our way together. I have been turning again and again and had Isaiah 43:19 in my head as we ponder new ways of being. In it, Isaiah writes, "See, I am doing a new thing. Now it springs up. Do you not perceive it? I am making a way in the wilderness and streams in the wasteland." So as we are doing a new thing, may we give each other grace and continue conversation about what it is. I'm wondering if we have any birthdays or anniversaries to celebrate this week.
Will is going to be turning 3 this upcoming Saturday, the 26th.
I don't see Vi on the screen, but we probably all know that Vi is having a major birthday, 102 on Monday.
A 3-year-old and a 102-year-old. So anybody fit in between there? Well, I don't know if I'm not sure.
Evelyn March is going to have a big one on Wednesday.
Oh. Thank you, Nell.
Evelyn, you didn't tell us that. There is someone in the middle.
Okay. Leaning towards one end, though.
Well, everyone feel free to unmute and say happy birthday to Evelyn and Will and Vi.
Happy birthday!
Happy birthday.
Thank you. Thank you.
Well, I think that is all of mine. I don't know if we have any visitors with us this morning. Just always like to take a moment and see if there's anyone who would like to introduce themselves.
I already mentioned that Masi is here visiting us for another week, so that's great.
Masi, welcome. Glad you're with us.
Thank you.
Well, my friends, we have a
Do we
benediction.
have any anniversaries?
I asked that with the birthdays, but
Oh,
maybe
okay, sorry.
that's okay. We can take a moment. We like to celebrate however we can.
Well, I will share something I should have shared during sharing, and that is the celebration of Jim Peachy's life. That was a wonderful service yesterday. The real Jim Peachy was revealed by comments from his children and from relatives, and he was truly a member of our congregation in so many ways, raising many questions, participating in discussions. So thank you, Kate, for leading that, and Doug Miller for sharing personal stories along with his children.
Thanks, Jim. Yeah, it was a beautiful way of honoring his life.
I guess I should have shared too, and I was ready to share, but I wasn't fast enough. We celebrated Roy's passing for 4 years on Wednesday with the family and scattered some of his ashes in the Lost Creek. And then yesterday, our small group that has been a part of our lives for the last 18 years planted a tree in his honor, burying the remaining of the ashes. So we did a celebration, but of course, with a Father's Day on top of it and knowing he's not here, it's still difficult.
Thanks for sharing that, Hope. And we hold you. Well, our benediction today is a sung benediction from Ndunge, both in the hospital and then Ndunge with David and Eviela. So my friends, go in love and peace this week to bring God's kingdom of flourishing among us. Marvin, please share.
My hope is built on nothing less than Jesus' blood and righteousness. I dare not trust the sweetest frame, but wholly trust in Jesus' name.
On Christ the solid rock I stand, all other ground is sinking sand. All other ground is sinking sand. No guilt in life, no fear in death. This is the power of Christ in me. From life's first cry to final breath, Jesus commands my destiny. No power of man